Do you want to see this in your rearview mirror while conducting surveillance as a private investigator? Let's discuss what to do when the police do roll up in the middle of your surveillance. First, you need to decide, is it just a regular neighborhood patrol or is it a call for a suspicious vehicle? Many times while out on surveillance, especially in smaller towns, I will see police multiple times during the day. Police departments in those smaller towns many times require frequent neighborhood drive-thrus. I know one town here in Colorado that requires every street to be driven once an hour unless officers are on a call. When you see the patrol car, just keep an eye on them and see what they are doing. If you're visible to them, then I would suggest doing a quick hand wave as they pass by. Most times, if it's just a regular patrol, they're just going to wave and drive right on by. Any suspicious neighbors that see this will assume that the police know you and that you don't pose a threat to them. Now, usually if this happens to me after I have made the hand wave to the officer, I will usually then call myself into dispatch, code 5 on surveillance, and let them know where I am, my vehicle description, my plate number, my cell phone number in case they need to reach me, and how long I plan to be in the area. This way, when that officer drives back by in an hour or two, he knows why I'm still sitting there in my car. If you're hunkered down, you're blacked out in your car, then just let them pass. If it's a routine patrol, they will be in and out fairly quickly. If they are on a call for a suspicious vehicle or a suspicious person, you will know soon enough, as this is what you're probably going to see in your rear view. This video is sponsored by OREP Insurance and Working PI Magazine. OREP is a leading provider of private investigator liability insurance. Visit orep.org for a quote today. Now, what should you do if they park down the street from you? First thing you should do is just wait it out. See what they're doing. They may just be on a call down the street, or perhaps they live on the street and they're just coming home from their shift, or they know somebody who lives on the street. If they start moving towards you slowly in their vehicle, then you might be the subject of their interest in the neighborhood. Keep an eye on things, but don't do anything alarming. So now the officer has pulled in behind. Lights are on, approaching your vehicle with one hand on his weapon, the other on his radio. What should you do? As with all traffic stops, keep your hands visible. Roll down your window. Make eye contact in your mirror with the officer if possible. Do not get out of your vehicle. Do not start going off on the officer about how he has ruined your surveillance or give him the riot act about your rights to sit in a public space on a public roadway. This will just make things worse. My recommendation is to always be ready for their inquiry. They will usually tell you they noticed you or they got a call about a suspicious vehicle or something like that and ask you what you're doing. I always tell the truth when dealing with the police. I don't always give the details, but I will say something to the effect of, sorry to be a bother, officer. I'm a private investigator. I'm conducting some surveillance on a subject down the road, and I should be done about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Then when they ask to see your ID, I always give them my driver's license, my registration, my insurance, my PI license, as well as a business card. If the officer asks who I am watching, I will say something like, due to client confidentiality, I cannot give out that information. That will usually suffice. Then the officer will usually go back, run you real quick for wants and warrants, and then get out of your way. Sometimes they'll say something like, you should call yourself in when you're doing surveillance. You can then inquire as to what number you should call, and then on future surveillances in the area, you can call yourself in. Now, what do you do if they ask you to step out of the car? Well, this has never happened to me in over 1,000 surveillances, but I would probably get out of my car. You have to keep in mind the officer doesn't know you at all. They have no reason to believe your story, and they may consider you a credible threat to the neighborhood or to him or herself. All of this can be prevented to a point if you first call yourself into dispatch when you initiate surveillance. Keep in mind though, just because you call yourself in does not mean if a suspicious neighbor sees you and calls 911, police won't come to check things out. In fact, in most jurisdictions, they require an officer go out to an area for all 911 calls. If you have called in, however, and they have your cell phone number, they may call you first to inquire as to your presence and let you know someone has called in and that they have to come check it out. When this has happened to me in the past, I have even had officers that ask me if I wanted to meet them off scene so I don't blow my cover. Now, the easiest answer to the big question, when should I call myself into dispatch for surveillance, is it all depends, folks. If I am working a rural case, and I do a lot of rural cases, I almost always call myself myself in to county dispatch. I don't call the local police station, I just call dispatch. Small town and rural county surveillance are the ones I find most likely to have someone call in a suspicious vehicle. Now, some people will argue that if you do that in smaller areas, you could be talking to the subject's sister or cousin or a friend that works in dispatch, or they may have friends or family that are in law enforcement in the area. While this is true, I have never, to my knowledge, had this happen on any of my rural cases. I do know if you try to do city surveillance in small towns or out in the country, you will get burned more often than not. If I am working a mid to large size city, it really depends on the neighborhood. If it's a large apartment complex, I'm less likely to call myself in. If I'm working in a normal family neighborhood but able to sit in an industrial area or a shopping area or a nearby apartment complex, I probably won't call myself in. If I'm working in a very busy, crowded family neighborhood, I'm most likely going to call myself in as well. If I'm in an upscale neighborhood, I'm going to call myself in too. It will also depend on the time of day that you're starting. If it's 5 a.m., I'm not likely to call myself in right away. I may wait and see if I get activity on my subject. If not, then I might call myself in later depending on the circumstances. If I'm starting at 10 o'clock in the morning or in the middle of the afternoon in a residential neighborhood, I'm probably going to call myself in. There are a lot of variables that go into answering the question. Use common sense, folks, as well. Use your gut feel. If you did not call yourself in, but you think neighbors are getting suspicious, go ahead and call yourself in, just in case that they call the police. If you have intel that says your subject will be active most likely within an hour or two of start time, maybe you don't need to call yourself in. If you do not, and the police roll up on you, and you see this in your rear view, chances are everyone else, including your target, sees it too.